Okay, I'd like to call the meeting to order in accordance with the Open Public Meetings Act, PL 1975, Chapter 231. Adequate notice of this regular meeting of the Board of Adjustment of the Township of Franklin has been provided. Would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Betterbid.
Here.
Ms. Graham.
Here.
Mr. Johnson.
Here.
Mr. McCracken. Mr. Rich.
Here.
Mr. Shepherd. Mr. Caldwell. Mr. Rosenthal.
Here.
Mr. Reese is asked to be excused. He had some surgery on his eyes and was not able to be here this evening. Some minor surgery, he's fine. Ms. Bergalio.
Here.
Chairman Thomas.
Here. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. Minutes of the regular meeting, March 5th, 2014. We have a motion for approval.
I'll make the motion.
Second.
Mr. Betterbid.
Yes.
Mr. McCracken. Oh, I'm sorry, he's not here. No vote. Mr. Rich.
Yes.
Mr. Rosenthal.
Yes.
Ms. Bergalio.
Here.
Chairman Thomas.
Yes. Resolutions, New Jersey Tabernacle, ZBA 13-00015. Is there a
So
motion?
moved.
Second.
Second.
Mr. Betterbid.
Yes.
Ms. Graham.
Yes.
Mr. Johnson.
Yes.
Mr. Rich.
Yes.
Mr. Rosenthal.
Yes.
Chairman Thomas.
Yes. Diamond Builders and Investors, ZBA 13-00023. We need a motion.
I'll move.
Second.
Mr. Johnson.
Yes.
Mr. Rich.
Yes.
Chairman Thomas.
Yes. Franklin Nursing LLC, ZBA 12-00001. Need a motion for approval.
So move.
Second.
Mr. Betterbid.
Yes.
Mr. Rich.
Yes.
Mr. Rosenthal.
Yes.
Chairman Thomas.
Yes. David Nosworthy, ZBA 13-00007.
I forgot to call you.
And
this
a
evening.
motion
Yes.
for approval.
Motion approved. Second.
Mr. Betterbid.
Yes.
Mr. Johnson.
Yes.
Mr. Rich.
Yes.
Mr. Rosenthal.
Yes.
Chairman Thomas.
Yes. The Jewish Home and Healthcare Center, ZBA 14-00001.
Motion approved.
Second.
Mr. Betterbid.
Yes.
Mr. Johnson.
Yes.
Mr. Rich.
Yes.
Mr. Rosenthal.
Yes.
Chairman Thomas.
Yes. And the Center for Great Expectations, ZBA 14-00004.
Move that we pass it.
And we need a second.
Mr. Betterbid.
Yes.
Mr. Johnson.
Yes.
Mr. Rich.
Yes.
Mr. Rosenthal.
Yes.
Chairman Thomas.
Yes. Okay, vouchers. April retainers, $865. Snyder Resolution Prep, $180. Wild Heart Landscaping Resolution Preparation, $105. Family Dollar Store Resolution Prep, $150. And is there a move to approve?
I move it.
Is there a
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Relief of conditions, Chan and Wu, ZBA 13-00001. Again, is there a motion to approve?
No,
Oh.
that's the new
we're going a little
discussion
too
item.
fast.
Yeah, discussion item.
I was wondering about that.
We decided we'll approve them first and then.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman,
Fine later.
just very briefly, they're asking for relief of conditions of several of the conditions of the resolution. Any one of these individually, staff would have approved them, and I can tell you, and after he goes through the testimony, and we didn't do any staff reports because we don't have any issue with, staff does with any of these, but because there are 3 or 4 of them, we thought it appropriate for the board to listen to Mr. Lanford and decide for themselves. So the staff does not have any issues. We didn't issue any staff reports because we considered them minor by themselves, but because there are several of them together, we thought it was better for you to hear it.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Peter Lanford appearing on behalf of the applicant. I'll try to be very brief on this. if the board recalls, in 2013, in February, there was a hearing where we applied for a use variance to convert or change a previously granted use variance for a facility on Route 27 that was used as a residence and a fence business to a residence and the storage of audio equipment for the sale by Mr. Chen. When we came to the board and started preparing the plans, it appeared that the owner at that time, who was selling to Mr. Chen, had done a few things that he wasn't supposed to do, like putting additional stone and everything else. There were staff reports that were issued, and in essence, we agreed to comply with most of the items in the staff reports. Since then, my client purchased the property, removed a lot of the stone, started to comply with all of the things that we said we were going to comply with. But when we got out there in the field, we encountered certain things that were problematic that we can't comply with. And those are the ones that we requested relief of conditions for. It wasn't that we didn't want to do them, or, we said, well, now we got an approval and, forget about it. It's just that because of certain things that we found when we took over the property, can't be done, so that's why we're asking for the relief. For the record, before we came to the board, I asked Mr. Dominic to come out to the site. We walked the site to review the issues and the conditions, so he was there, and I understand that the requested relief was discussed with the relevant township staff, the engineering department, and the fire official, all of whom concurred that the relief can be granted. I will ask Mr. Ford to be sworn and just very briefly talk about the three things that we are seeking relief from.
Okay, if you raise your right hand, you solemnly swear or affirm to tell the whole truth, nothing but the truth,
Yes, I do.
and your name for the record.
Michael Ford, F-O-R-D.
Mr. Ford, you're with Van Cleef Engineering, and you were the engineer who testified in the original application.
Correct.
Okay, and you've been to the site on more than one occasion since the approval in this matter was granted?
Yes.
Okay, and you did supply to me and supply to the board a letter as to the conditions that we are seeking relief. Can you briefly go through it, the 3 or 4 things that we're seeking relief and why we're seeking it?
Okay, sure. The first one I'll speak to is with regards to the location of the components of the on-site septic system. That we have shown on the plans and an inspection. There's been an inspection done of the existing septic system, indicating that it's functioning properly. We've identified where the septic tank is and generally where the disposal field is. So we've shown all the information we know about the septic system on the plan, short of another step where you'd have to basically do test holes or dig up things to try to find them. And we're seeking relief from any other information they would want regarding the septic system.
And generally, where is the septic system located?
It's in the front left-hand corner of the property next to the driveway.
And perhaps it would require even digging up the driveway in order to try to
Could,
find.
right.
So,
right.
but we have identified on the plan where the septic system is located.
Yes.
When we came to the board, and we had no idea where it was, and through
Right.
investigation, we found that we located it and identified it. We just have not put all of the specific components on the plan. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, move on to the next one, please, Mr.
Okay.
Ford.
The second item I'll speak to is with regards to dry wells. This application for the change in the use, what really carried with it no proposed improvements. The contract purchaser wasn't going to change anything on the property. What came out of the hearing was a substantial reduction, or actually through meetings with the staff, a substantial reduction in the on-site impervious coverage. And that was part of the approval. The existing condition was at 60%. In essence, we're reducing that by 50% down to a 30% coverage on the entire site, 29.9%. So from a stormwater management standpoint, you could see that with an existing site that had 60% impervious coverage, functioned that way for many years without drainage problems being reported to the town or by any of the neighbors during the hearing, We didn't feel there was really any need for stormwater mitigation as part of the application. But there was a suggestion that a dry well be installed and the water captured from the top of the building and put into that dry well. And we agreed to that as a condition of approval. The unfortunate aspect that Mr. Lanford alluded to in his introduction was during construction implementing the conditions of the approval, we dug holes at the location of the dry well, and this is in the southern portion of the township on Route 27, not too far from the quarry. The soil conditions are very poor. The groundwater is really high, and the dry well, I don't think really would function as intended due to those existing soil conditions, so we're seeking relief from providing that dry well.
And the third item involves the sort of the relocation, so to speak, of the impervious coverage?
Right. The 30% impervious coverage that's proposed and was approved was indicated on the plan, where we would take out stone, where we would widen it a little bit for the fire officials' recommendation. Since the approval, the applicant's been in the property and wants to relocate some of that allocated 30% impervious coverage from one location to another, basically extending the driveway around one side of the building, but then reducing the driveway width on another side of the building. So the net effect is no additional impervious coverage, it's just shifted its location.
Okay, in essence, and I know it's been a year and the board doesn't recall all of it, we were going to relocate the entrance to the barn storage building closer to the main drive aisle, is that correct?
Right.
And eliminate the entrance that's already there at the rear portion of the barn, is that correct?
Correct.
And again, the client in finding operations and functions would like to keep that rear entrance and not construct a new entrance.
Correct.
And we would keep the percentage of impervious coverage to shift it around so we can access that rear door.
Correct.
Thank you. I have no further questions.
And just for the record, we showed that plan to both our township, I did, to both the township engineer and John House from Fire, and they had no issue with the reallocation from an engineering perspective and fire safety perspective. There was no issue.
Anything from the board?
I have a couple of questions. Does this have a well on it or is it city water?
There's city water there.
City water.
Right.
Okay, then with the septic system, you say it's functioning okay.
Mhm.
But yet you're saying the water table's high, so the storm,
Right.
so how would that affect the functioning of the septic system if
Yeah.
the water table's high then?
Good question. If this is an existing septic system, it's been there for some time. I would suspect if we had to replace that septic system, it would probably be a mounded septic system so that it would lift up the septic out of the groundwater table. But unfortunately, with the dry well, and you can achieve that by pumping the effluent up into the septic. But with a dry well, stormwater, we don't put pumps to pump the water up into a dry well. As far as the existing septic, it's functioning. It goes into the ground. It has a report from the owner, the previous owner, and the new owner's been in the house for a year and hasn't noticed any breakout, any effluent at grade, issues with the septic. With the dry well too, it's deeper into the ground. Those aren't, typically a septic system, the level, is much closer to the surface. With a dry well, you're 6-8 feet into the ground. The regulations want you to be a certain distance above the groundwater table. So yes, they're related and there need kinds of conditions to function, but they're different in the way you would address characteristics that wouldn't be favorable to either case. Hope that answers.
Any other questions?
Yeah.
This is not one we need to open to the public, correct?
Nope.
Anyone want to offer a motion?
Yeah, I would move that we approve the application to modify the conditions.
Second.
Any discussion?
Mr. Betterbid,
Yes.
Ms. Grumman,
Yes.
Mr. Johnson,
Yes.
Mr. Rich,
Yes.
Mr. Rosenthal,
Yes.
Ms. Brigalo,
Yes.
Chairman Thomas.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Okay, Ken Haig, ZBA 14-00006, hardship variance in which the applicant's proposing to remove 2 existing buildings and construct a 1,440-square-foot pole barn at 599 Elizabeth Avenue, Block 508.02, Lot 57.01, in the R40 zone.
Mr. Chairman, just very briefly, Mr. Haig, actually one of our township employees, there are several existing variances that are needed that aren't changed from the application. That's the frontage, he's supposed to have 200, he's 170.36. That's an existing condition. There's a side yard setback, and there's a total side yard setback, and there's also he's slightly over on the impervious, 20% maximum, 22.2% proposed.
Okay. We'll need to swear you in first.
Let me just give it a tap on the top and see if it's on. Okay. If you'll raise your right hand for me, solemnly swear or affirm to tell the whole truth, nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay, and now your name for the record.
My name's Kenny Hague, Hague, and I reside at 599 Elizabeth Avenue.
Okay, and the gentleman next to you is who?
Mr. Dorn.
Mr. Dorn is your professional that you've brought here tonight testify on your behalf?
Yes.
And Mr. Dorn, if you raise your right hand, you solemnly swear or affirm to tell the whole truth, nothing but the truth?
I do.
And Mr. Dorn, what is your profession?
I'm a licensed engineer, land surveyor, and planner here in the state of New Jersey.
And you have testified before this board in the past, correct?
Yes, I have.
And you maintain those licenses?
Yes, I do.
Mr. Chairman. Okay.
Okay.
You just explain what you want to do, Ken.
I want to remove 2 existing structures and put up one newer one, and just consolidate all my stuff into one place instead of 2.
And maybe if I can, I'll explain what's at the site today and what Mr. Hague would like to accomplish. There's an existing single-family dwelling located on the property. That dwelling is located 6.5 feet from the northerly property line, which is the sideline. There's an existing well and septic system that services that dwelling. And there are 3 existing auxiliary structures that are all located close to that northerly property line and the rear line. And as Mr. Hague stated, what he would like to do is to remove 2 of those existing older structures and to replace them with one structure. Now, that one structure is going to be located 6.5 feet off of that sideline. The site's located in the R40 zone, and in that zone, the side yard requirement is 25 feet. And thus, a variance for the location of that garage is required. I think it's also important to point out, too, that there is going to be no utilities servicing this garage. There's no driveway servicing the garage. And the garage can be constructed in a manner that won't negatively impact the existing drainage pattern of the site or the surrounding properties.
Is the garage being used essentially for storage or a vehicle garage, or what's the use of it?
Yes, it is. He has a boat and he has lawn equipment that are located in both of the 2 structures that will be replaced.
Okay.
The third structure will be located behind the proposed structure, and that structure will be located behind it and within the building setback lines. With this variance that's required for the side yard of the proposed structure, it's a C1 variance. And this variance can be granted if there is physical features uniquely affecting the site. And I think those features are the fact that the 3 existing structures all are within that, that side yard setback and close to that northerly property line. Important, too, that the existing structure, being only 6.5 feet off of that common side yard, enables the variance to be mitigated by the fact that it will block the view of this proposed structure from anybody traveling on Elizabeth Avenue. The septic system, that field is located in the southerly portion of that rear yard, and by keeping this structure off to the side will also enable the applicant and his family members to continue to utilize their backyard for their enjoyment and relaxation. As far as the positive criteria, the applicant's replacing 2 older existing structures with a new structure. He's relocating that remaining auxiliary structure that currently is within the side yard setback and is going to be putting that within the setback lines. And again, the dwelling will still be able to block the view of that proposed structure from Elizabeth Avenue. And as far as the negative criteria, I don't believe that there is any. The applicant's looking to improve his property with a new structure. I think it's going to be a benefit to both the property itself and to the adjoining property owners.
It looks to me, when I look at the map, that the structure that would be on the property to the north that's adjoining is pretty far away, so that there would be not all that much impact in any event.
I agree. And this structure will sit behind that structure that is located, that existing dwelling that's located on Lot 58, which is the property to the north of this site.
Do you have a distance? How far is that house from the property line? Would you be able to just eyeball it off of your aerial map? If the property itself is 170 feet, the subject site's 170 feet, I'm guessing that's at least 100 feet away?
I would agree. It's close to that, yes. If it's not quite 100, it's close to it, yes.
Okay. And then the location of this proposed building, when you look at the site plan, that's where the 2 structures currently are,
That's
right?
correct.
And
They actually sit closer to the property line today than what is proposed.
Okay, so, and currently they are, so what's the proposed setback of the new building?
6.5 feet. It'll be the same setback as the dwelling.
Okay, so then the existing structures that are in that same exact location are probably more like 3 feet?
Correct.
All right, and then you're also, as part of this application, removing a shed that's in the rear yard?
That's correct, yes.
Okay, and that's also non-conforming in terms of the side yard and I believe the rear yard?
And rear yard, yes.
So you're getting rid of that non-conformity, I'm assuming the storage needs or whatever for that are going to be part of this new
That's
building?
correct. The 2 that are going to be removed are the structure that's closer to the rear yard, 17 feet off the rear yard, and the larger structure that's closer to the northerly property line. The smallest of the 3 existing auxiliary structures will be relocated within the building setback lines and behind the proposed structure.
Okay. And then looking at the architectural plans, it shows a 1-story shed, and it looks to be about 15 feet high?
It's about 16 feet high, that's
16
correct.
feet
to the
high.
peak.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Nothing flammable. Nothing flammable in the garages, right?
Just the lawnmowers
So-
and my aluminum boat.
Any other questions?
Did I hear you say you weren't going to have utilities in there? No electricity?
That's correct.
No, not right now. No.
Okay.
Any other questions?
I have a question. Can one of you describe the landscaping between this proposed structure and the neighbor to the north? What kind of trees are there or shrubs? Is there anything there?
There's a hedgerow along the easterly property line, which is the rear yard of Lot 58, and there is some larger trees that are common along that, I'll say the common property line to the north of this site. Both large deciduous trees and shrubs along that line.
Okay, and I'm looking at the aerial photograph on your plan. On Lot 56, which is to the south, is that a garage in their rear yard?
Yes, it is.
Okay, about how large would you say that is?
It has 3 overhead doors,
Okay,
so it would be 55 feet maybe.
do you think it's similar or in size to your proposal, or,
It would be similar, yes.
okay.
I would say similar, Similar, perhaps the one on Lot 56 might be slightly larger.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Any other testimony?
None.
Open to the public. Is there anyone who'd like to ask a question or make a comment? Then we'll close to the public. Anything further from the board, or is someone willing to offer a motion?
I move that we approve the application, both to approve the existing and proposed conditions, and also the proposed variances.
Second.
Any discussion? Call the board.
Mr. Betterbit,
Four.
Ms. Grammon,
Four.
Mr. Johnson, Mr. Rich,
Four.
Mr. Rosenthal,
Yes.
Mr. Gallo,
Yes.
Chairman Thomas.
Yes. Okay, the next application, Fu Duoyan Buddhist of New Jersey Incorporated, ZBA 14-00003, use variance and site plan with variances in which the applicant is proposing an addition to the building and adding 13 parking spaces at 970 Hamilton Street, Somerset, Block 104, Lot 9, in the M2 zone.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Peter Lanford appearing on behalf of the applicant. This matter is on before you this evening. This matter was originally scheduled to be heard on the 17th of April and was carried to this evening with notice having been given us that this matter was carried.
And just one clarification, this application was originally scheduled for 2 weeks ago, Pete? April 17th?
Correct.
And the meeting was canceled. We placed the appropriate notice on the outside of the building indicating that it was carried to this date and that the meeting was canceled, just so that the board's aware of that.
This evening, this is an application, as the chairman indicated, for a use variance and site plan for property at 970 Hamilton Street. I was retained in this matter a little over 2 years ago. During that time, we've had numerous meetings with our professionals and also with the township staff to develop the application, which is before the board. This is a rather unique application, and it is a rather small church, or house of worship, I should say, and designed to be so because of its intended users. My client purchased the property in 2010 and has owned the property and has resided in it since 2010. The facility operates as a Buddhist house of worship, and as such doesn't have a formal set schedule of religious services. It's more of a situation where people come and meditate. Now, this evening, I have with me my architect, engineer, planner, and the client. Part of the problem that it took us 2 years is that there is quite a difficult communication situation between my client and our professionals in trying to get this plan together. My client, the monk who resides there, speaks Vietnamese. I have a gentleman here who has come to all of the meetings with my client to help interpret. After 2 years, I sort of understand him pretty well, but if I had to have him translate every question, we would probably be here for hours, because the communication problem situation is a little bit difficult. I will tell you who these gentlemen are. I think we should swear in one of Mr. Dow, who is the translator. I have spent some time with them to review the operations and how the facility functions. I will present all of that information to the board. I will ask them to verify that whatever I've presented is in fact accurate. Otherwise, I think we would be here for a rather lengthy period of time. For the record, the owner of the property, who is the monk who does reside there, his name is Trong, T-R-U-O-N-G, Sun, S-O-N, T, the letter T, Wyn, H-U-Y-N-H. And who will help with the interpretation, if we need any interpretation, is Mr. Dung, D-U-N-G, Dow, D-A-O. So I don't know, Mr. Bradshaw, whether you want to try to swear both of them in, or at least the interpreter in to...
Sir, if you'll approach, just give him a microphone, if you will. Sir, do you solemnly swear that the interpreting that you'll do for us tonight will be, to the best of your ability, accurate and truthful?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
And for the record, Mr. Wynn, the monk, also does understand some English, so sometimes if there's questions directed to him, he doesn't necessarily need to have them translated, but he does not communicate very well back in English. As I indicated to you, this property was purchased by Mr. Wynn in 2010. He resides in the property and does have people come to meditate on the property from time to time, and has since 2010. Mr. Wynn is a monk who practices Buddhism. He conducts his teachings solely in Vietnamese. He does not have any English-speaking, I don't want to use the word services, they have meditation, but all of it is done in Vietnamese. Since he's been there, he's had people come to worship, and the worship time is on Sunday between 4:30 and 6:30 p.m. That is the only time that people come to the facility to meditate collectively.
So they would all be there at the same time? I'm thinking about the other Buddhist house of worship application that you had where I don't recall there being services people came.
No.
Is this something the
No,
same?
it's similar. Yeah, there is no formal service. And this facility, he opens up on Sundays from 4:30 to 6. They're not all there at the same time. But that's when they come to meditate collectively, so to speak. People come and bring food. I've learned now, having done, this is my third, that monks do not cook, do not prepare their own food. I was thinking of becoming a monk. But then I also found out that monks have food brought to them, and they eat breakfast and lunch, and then they don't eat anything till the next morning. So that's when I decided I wasn't going to be a monk anymore. So that's the way it works. And when people come on Sunday to this facility, they come to meditate. They also come to bring food, so he has food to eat for the week. That is the only time that it is generally open for people to come in to collectively or to meditate. At any other time, he may have a member come to visit him, just like somebody would come to your house to visit you, but he does not conduct any services. He consistently has had, over the time he's been there, 15 to 20 people coming during that 2-hour period, not all of them at the same time. I have asked them to keep a track of the number of vehicles that come, and he says generally it is between 7 and 8 vehicles, again, not all of them at the same time. Again, his focus is to afford the ability of people who speak Vietnamese to come and meditate. Should this new facility be approved, none of that would change. There is only one other exception. He would have earlier on a Sunday afternoon for the children, and there's a room in the facility which will be described by Mr. Kassane, a teaching room, so that the children can come in and learn about Buddhism. And that would be for about 5 to 7 children based on the membership that he has now, and that would be earlier on the Sunday afternoon. All of the services or all of the meditation or the teachings are in Vietnamese. Now, there are 3 holidays or special events that they celebrate. One is the Vietnamese New Year, the other is Buddha's birthday, and the third is the mother of Buddha's birthday. He celebrates 2 of those 3, which are Buddha's birthday and the mother of Buddha, on Sundays. So he doesn't open the facility or have a special service. That is celebrated as part of the Sunday normal service. He has indicated to me on those events, there will be a larger amount of people. Usually instead of 15 to 20, it's 20 to 30. But again, not all at the same time. The Vietnamese New Year falls on a different day every year. The facility is then open for, again, people to come in and meditate throughout the day. And he has indicated during the course of an entire day, he would get somewhere between 15 and 30 people. And you'll see in the plans, there is a statue of Buddha that will be placed outside. There is, if people come to visit the facility, they can go visit the statue. All meditation will be done inside the facility. The facility, and we'll describe it later, has an area for meditation on the first level. The rest of the facility are the living quarters. I do know that the site is rather small, okay? It is small because it doesn't need to be any bigger. It's appropriate for the intended use. However, having been before this board on numerous occasions, I know one of the biggest concerns that this board has is what if there is need for additional parking. I've discussed that with my client. We've been discussing that for 2 years, and I am fairly comfortable and satisfied we will probably never have any need for additional parking, basically because of the type, the people that we cater to. We have a limited market, so to speak. And again, it is not where we have any fixed time where everybody congregates at one time. However, having said that, in an effort to be extremely cautious, I did contact the Genesis company, which is the people who have developed the facility at the intersection of Franklin Boulevard and Hamilton Street, which is about a block away. That is the facility that was just recently completed, which has 64 age-restricted units on it, plus 11,000 some square feet of office space on the first level. The parking on that facility, for that facility, was designed both for the residential and for the office facilities. The office facilities are under lease to Somerset County Social Services, and they will never be open on Sunday. I do have a letter from Karim Hudson, who is the president of the Genesis Housing Renewal LLC, who has indicated, and I will put it into evidence, I have, Mr. Bradshaw, sort of going to mark this out of order because I marked all the exhibits in advance. I think this will be a 7, is a letter indicating that he would allow this facility to use their parking lot for overflow parking when and if it would become necessary.
That includes the New Year, which might fall on any day?
He basically said on Sundays. He didn't specifically say the New Year, but again, based on his testimony, on the New Year, there is no group service. The facility is open for people to come.
No, I understand, but
Yeah.
that happens to be one day where there may be a need for overflow. There may be.
I mean, I can check with him. I am sure he probably will amend his letter to allow it if it becomes necessary. Again, I think the chances of that parking lot being used are probably 1 in a million. I think I'd have a better chance of entering a marathon than that parking lot being used. But anyway, here is the letter from Mr. Hudson, making those parking spaces available.
Okay, I'll mark it at 7.
One of the other issues that I know this board is always concerned about is landscaping and lighting, and we will deal with it more with our professionals, but I just want to get a couple things out front. One was, the original plan was we weren't going to even put any lighting outside, but in really figuring out that if you're there Sunday at 6:30 in the wintertime, it does get dark, so we will put some appropriate parking or lighting in the parking lot. There is none on the plan at this time. Again, we will be sensitive to what's around us as far as the lighting, and we'll make sure it's approved by the Township engineering staff. We do have across the street some residences, and we do have a fence that we are proposing, and we are in a position, if the board wants some additional landscaping, that we can provide that. Basically, that is the general information concerning the church, and I can ask Mr. Dow, who was sworn in. Mr. Dow, you heard everything I said about how the facility operates, correct?
Yes, I do.
Okay, and we went over this in my office over the last couple of years for me to understand how the religion and how your facility works. Is that correct?
Yes, correct.
And did I accurately represent how everything will work at the property? Is all the information that I gave true and accurate?
Yes.
Thank you.
One more question, since you mentioned the residential neighbors across the street. Have they been approached? Has there been any discussion with them about this facility?
My client has indicated that he has spoken to his neighbors generally as a neighbor. I don't know if he says he's never really spoken specifically about the facility itself, but he has, he's introduced himself to neighbors. Again, there's a language situation.
Of course.
Yes.
But we don't know then, unless someone appears tonight, whether or not there's a view about it in the neighborhood.
I can't answer that. That's correct.
You'll get a chance.
So, if I could just ask a few clarifying questions. So, you're saying that Monday through Saturday, the facility's not going to be used at all?
It will be used as a residence. Now, somebody may come to visit him, and while visiting him may meditate for a moment or two.
So it's open for somebody to come and worship?
Visit. It's not.
To have. So, and then the 1 day a week on Sunday, that's when 20 to 30 people may show up?
15 to 20.
15 to 20. You had mentioned 20 to 30.
That's on those 3 special days. He said he may get 20 to 30. On any given Sunday and he's tracked it since the time he's been there, it's average 15 to 20 people, not 15 to 20 cars, 15 to 20 people.
15 to 20 people, okay. So if there's 15 to 20 people on a regular basis, I guess one of the issues that staff was trying to wrestle with is if you only need to accommodate, your client only needs to accommodate for 15 to 20 people or 20 to 30 people, the worship area that they're proposing by the fire codes and the amount of people that can fit in it equates to 90. And then that results in the much larger parking requirement. So, can you explain why isn't your client building a worship area to accommodate the size of the congregation they're going to have?
Well, it's also something that is appropriate in size for the lot. It's something that I think is aesthetically pleasing. I mean, yeah, can we do something smaller and squeeze people into a smaller space? I'm sure that could be done, but I think my client wanted to build something that was attractive, that people would be comfortable in. Part of that area is used as a teaching room, and if there is a concern either by you or by the staff, I mean, we can limit the occupancy in there, even though by code we may be entitled to that many people based on a square footage basis. And again, people, we have no fixed seating. People come and just meditate. They do it on the floor. And it's just what my client felt was appropriate size for the comfort of the people to come. But I would be happy to talk to the board if they wanted to have a restricting number so they felt secure that the parking would be adequate.
Okay. Well, the potential issue with that is, that's an enforcement issue, I mean, that's, the one way to enforce how many people can fit in the building is to physically restrict the size of the building. So, yeah, I think you've proposed a building that if the congregation grows or they move out and another congregation moves in, but even if they just grow, it can physically accommodate 90 people. And then that requires 30 cars, and you have 13 spaces.
And again, we have provisions should that ever happen. We don't think it will. But, I mean, it's the same thing. I mean, does somebody need a 6,000 square foot house if it's a husband and wife and a child? No, but some people would like to have a large house.
I think that's apples to oranges.
No,
The larger the place of worship, the more cars are going to happen. If you have a 1,000 square foot house versus 6,000, the number of cars isn't going to go up by 6.
That's not, neither of those things are necessarily true, Mr. Healy. You can have a very large house with very few cars, you can have a very large church with very few cars, and conversely, you can have a smaller church with a lot of cars, and a smaller house with a lot of cars.
Pete, how do you address the second concern that Mr. Healy had regarding another house of worship? I mean, you gave some testimony that the board's going to consider regarding this specific use. How would we be protected if this was sold to another congregation, a Catholic church, for instance, and that has a regular mass? Would there be a way to protect this approval? Because you have to understand, the staff's concern is valid, and you've given testimony, but our job is to advise the board. So how would this board be protected from another? Is there a way to write the resolution if this board decided to approve it that would limit it to this type?
I think you can do it, and the way you can do it, and I don't want to say this is if you want to equate this to a commercial venture, if you have a commercial venture and the tenant changes, they got to come to you for a change of use. Now, obviously, that doesn't happen with a church. If a commercial venture comes to you for a change of use and their change of use deals with a need for additional parking or other things, you will not grant them the change of use unless they have, bring something into compliance or demonstrate to you that they can adequately meet all of the regulations for that use.
Yeah, but a change of use, if you're going to turn this from a Buddhist to a, let us say, small Jewish temple, that's not a change of use.
If you let me finish the thought. My thought was that similar to that, we would agree that if my client sold the property to to another religious institution, we would then have to come to the zoning officer to demonstrate that the new user can comply, or they would require him to go back to the board to get whatever appropriate approvals may be necessary, so that user would be subject to basically the restrictions that we have. Yeah. If there was a change in occupancy or tenancy.
I appreciate the concern that Mr. Dominic brought up, but I still have the concern that we're building a facility that can accommodate 90 people. And, again, a new facility, a bigger facility, we can't predict the future that it won't draw more people.
Well,
and unfortunately, once we leave the hearing and the conditions are established and the institution functions, it's very difficult to change things.
Well, I don't think it's difficult. I think it's very simple to put controls. Things change all the time. For whether it's a commercial operation, whether it's a residential development, you know, the world changes. It's constantly changing. I mean, and you know, I think, you know, you need to protect the municipality to make sure you do the best job possible so that this does not become a burden upon the municipality or a burden upon the neighbors. And I think you could put controls in place. Can we guarantee everything 100%? Probably not. But again, I think there are certain limiting factors in the way he operates the facility that sort of militate against this thing exponentially growing. And I also think, although he hasn't been doing it as an approved facility, he's been having people there for the last 2 or 3 years, basically under the same protocols, and there hasn't been a problem. So I think, you know, and the next thing you're going to say is, yeah, but if you build a new building, you know, it may attract more people, and it's possible. But again, we still have a limited market, so to speak, and you'll hear some testimony as to that.
But there's other things that go along with this. You realize if this were a 2-acre site like it's required, we wouldn't even be having discussions.
Right.
So.
And you'll hear from the planner that, you know, also the permitted uses on this site in an M2 zone are far more intense and could have a far more traumatic effect on the neighborhood than our proposed use. Because, again, we are in an M2, which is an industrial zone. We're not in a residential zone. I mean, most of the time, we're sitting here, and I can't remember the last house of worship that I did that was not in an R zone. And so we were there trying to protect you know, a lot of the residential neighbors. The people across the street from us on Baker are residential neighbors in a residential zone, but adjacent to us is an M zone, and so, you know, we are not in a residential zone. So, again, that's you know, we're in a different situation there, Mr. Chairman. And you know, I don't want to steal the planner's thunder. He's been...
Different situation, but a commercial use, you know, we're dealing with the application, as you would often tell us, that's presented to us.
That's correct.
Here tonight, and a lot of times we would have said in an application like this, did your client make attempts to make the property conforming?
Mm-hmm. And we're developed on either side of us. I mean, there's an office building.
But here's where the difference, I think, between this use and a commercial use might differ. A commercial user might make an attempt to aggressively purchase the property. This facility may consider that it doesn't need it, so it's not doing that. But I'm not sure that we shouldn't at least apply the same standard to see if a good faith effort to either sell the property if it can't be used or purchase property to make it 2 acres. This use, basically, like I said, if it were a 2-acre site, a lot of issues would go right away.
And if it was a 2-acre site, my client wouldn't need it and wouldn't be here either. And again, I think I said this to this board on one of the previous applications or one of the other boards that I had presented an application for a church. Churches are very challenging because every one of them is different. You know, we have tried and true standards for office buildings. Everybody generally knows what the parking needs are for an office building. Sometimes they may be a little bit greater if it's a medical versus a regular office building. If you're building a shopping center, depending on the size of the shopping center, there's been studies upon studies that show shopping centers need X number of spaces, and generally those numbers of parking spaces, if you build them, they work. Houses of worship, each one of them is different. You know, the days they worship, when they worship, how they worship, their congregation. They're all, and so it's a challenge for Mr. Healy and planners and people who draft ordinances for churches to draft an ordinance because they're all different. And again, you as a board have to figure out whether this site is appropriate for this user. And that's the challenge that you're faced with.
For this user and this use.
And this use, yes.
And what really also bothers me, I wasn't going to bring this up, but from my point of view, you opened the door, is when you talk about previous approvals similar to this, I think we could point out a number, maybe even a large number, of previous approvals with houses of worship that don't come as advertised. All right? And that's a dilemma as far as I'm concerned for me as a board member. I hear the testimony, I hear 15 to 20 people, I hear maybe 30 another time. I have, if you excuse me, again, like I said, you opened the door mentioning previous approvals. I've heard it before, and then I can drive by in different areas of the township and see, several special occasions instead of just 3, and instead of X number of people, the parking lot's full and people are all over the place. So we have to determine also the use and the appropriateness for the site, but the credibility of the applicant.
I agree with you, Mr. Thomas, and I also can tell you that I, believe it or not, did an application well before any of you were on this board, and you've been here a long time, for a church on Hamilton Street with 0 parking that's there now. As you're going to New Brunswick, towards New Brunswick on the same side, it's a Spanish church. The zoning board granted an approval with no parking spaces. And that church has functioned for 20-some years, and as far as I know, there's never been a complaint or an issue with that church. And I know the church, one of the houses of worship that you're alluding to that has problems. Some people, and it's not only churches, it's businesses, it's industry, it's residences. Some people don't always play by the rules. But you can't paint that, with a broad brush.
Well, it hurts the ones that do play by the rules, but the other issue here, the church that we, and actually I don't think anybody was on the board 20 years ago, you had different lot size requirements, it was a whole different ballgame. And who's to say that that facility would get the same approval without a whole set of different conditions?
All I'm pointing out is that a church can work depending on where it's located and depending on who it's attracting without any parking.
That's exactly what I'm saying, and it's probably never been any more true than in this application. You have to prove that a .45 acre can support this church, and from my point of view, I have to believe in the credibility of the testimony.
And I think that's in every application. It's not only in this one, it's in every application.
That's probably true.
And like I said, whether for the right reasons or the wrong reasons, there is a track record here that they've had people there on Sundays, basically in the same numbers in the small building that's there. And if you've seen it, it's not the nicest thing in Franklin Township.
Then that's the other thing that struck me with what was said before. Why couldn't a smaller building be constructed? I mean, you sort of made the assertion that your client's saying that it has to be big to be attractive and comfortable, but if it's accommodating 15 people, there are lots of people that accommodate that many people once a week at a party at their house. It's small, it's comfortable, and it's appropriate for the size. So if we talk about, maybe down the road in this application, if we talk about reducing the size of the building, maybe we look at things in another light also. But I don't think small is necessarily ugly or unusable.
No, neither of those are the case, but I think maybe let's let the testimony play out as to how it functions, and we will go through all of that with, the architect and even the site engineer for the parking issues. And again, if the board felt it was appropriate that we look at something smaller, I would have to explain that to my client. We can, evaluate it and look at it, but,
All right, it's probably better if you go on.
One more question, Mr. Chairman. So you'd mentioned that if there is a need for overflow parking, you would use the Independence Crossing development.
correct.
Which is a few hundred feet away. Why did you choose that site and not sites closer? For example, there's a office building right next door with several dozen parking spaces, and then you have the shopping center that I don't think they use all of their spaces, maybe particularly not on a Sunday. Why didn't you look at those closer spaces and one probably 400 feet away?
I did contact the property owner next door to see if he would allow us to use his parking lot, the office building that you referred to, and he responded he would not allow us to use his parking lot. So I did contact him. I did not contact the shopping center at the corner of Franklin Boulevard and Hamilton Street, only because it is a shopping center. It is somewhat active on a Sunday. And I also had a relationship, obviously, since I did the work for Independence Crossing, and I knew there were spaces available there because part of the building is being used for offices that are not in use on a Sunday, so I knew that was available. That's why I contacted Mr. Hudson, and he was amenable to allowing it. If the board felt that I should try to contact somebody closer, I'd be happy to do it. But I did contact the adjoining property owner, and he indicated that he would not let us use those spaces.
In the event there was a larger event that used the full occupancy of the building, how would people get back and forth? Would they walk? What's the?
It's only, as you said, it's 400 feet. It's a block away. I think people can walk that far.
I'm just
Yeah.
putting it on the record.
Yeah,
Just-
I mean, if the board felt that I had to transport them, I guess we could. Again, I never really looked at that because we honestly don't believe we'll ever be over there. But if we had to be, and if the board said you had to arrange transportation, I guess we could do it, but it's, I think people can walk a block. As a matter of fact, people would probably drop somebody off and then just go park over there and come back.
I just look at it from a practical perspective. I think human nature, they see two large parking areas that are right next door or 50 or 100 feet away as opposed to 500 feet away. Where are they going to park? That's why I asked the question.
And they would be, on both facilities, trespassing if they parked there and would be left to their perils. And I know the owner who owns the office building next door, and I'm sure if people were parking in there, he'd either chain it or do something, but that's another story.
Okay, next witness.
Mr. Kassane?
Solemnly swear, you're going to need a microphone. Okay, solemnly swear or affirm to tell the whole truth, nothing but the truth.
I do.
Your name for the record?
Jim Kissane, that's Kissane.
Mr. Kassane, what is your occupation?
I'm a licensed architect in the state of New Jersey since 1984.
And where's your office located?
605 Franklin Boulevard, and I've been in town for about the past 20 years.
And testified before this board on previous occasions?
Yes, yes, I have.
All right, Mr. Kassane, I've marked 4 exhibits which describe the building, which you prepared. One of them is a colored rendering of the building. The remaining exhibits are the plan sets that were submitted in conjunction with this application. Is that correct?
That's correct.
All right. Can you briefly describe the building, first of all, starting with the interior of the building, and we'll talk about what it looks like from the outside.
Okay. I'd like to do some homework first and just get our numbers correct. I was looking at my title block tonight, and as the project changes, some of the numbers did not change. The existing building right now is 1,029 square feet, and it's a one-story wood frame building. Just to get a perspective of 1,000 square feet, it's the brick wall to probably roughly where I'm standing to Mr. Dominic over there. That's 1,000 square feet, all right? We're proposing to enlarge the first floor to 2,677 square feet. So we're adding about 1,650 square feet. There is a second floor we're proposing, and that's 423 square feet. It is a small apartment used by the monk, and I'll go over that. There's a front porch on the building that's 371 square feet, and that faces Hamilton Street. The drawings I'm referring to are A1 through A4. Mr. Lamfrit marked them. On drawing A1, I'm showing the first floor plan. Everything that's in black, the heavy black lines, are new proposed addition area. The existing building is in the middle. Where this word proposed temple is the existing building, and there the clear lines are existing. The front doors to the building face Hamilton Street. The parking lot is to the rear of the building, and we have a new handicapped ramp which comes from the back up the side into the side of the building. Now we're adding 20 feet towards Hamilton Street, which will be Temple area. And the right side of the building, we're adding 14 feet to the right side of the building, and that contains 2 handicap bathrooms, a small kitchen and dining room for temple meals, and a teaching room for the children, which measures 16 by 13. The front porch is of masonry construction, and there's a little enclosed porch presently on the house right now, which we're enlarging and enclosing.
Mr. Kassane, approximately what is the square footage of the temple area on that first floor?
The temple area is approximately 42 by 25, so the temple area is 1,000 square feet.
Okay, and that basically, other than the expansion out the front, is the existing house?
That's the room of the temple.
Yes.
Yes.
This is the existing house.
And that's correct. That is what is there right now.
Okay.
As the extent of the house, yes.
Okay. And the rest of the first floor is either restroom facilities, that children's room, and then the kitchen area?
Correct.
Okay. Take us to the second floor, which I think is on A...
A2 has it's a second floor apartment. It's 14 by about 27. It's about 423 square feet. This is the monk's quarters. The monk traditionally lives in the temple, takes care of the temple. You can see that it's very modest in size.
What rooms are located on that second floor?
There's a bedroom, a combination living room, kitchen, and a bathroom.
Okay.
So it's very modest.
Now, the building itself, can you indicate, on A2 is a colored rendering of the proposed building, is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
One of the main design features of this new scheme is the roof. We're proposing on the front area of the roof to use a rather expensive resin polymer. I'm going to call it a Spanish tile look roof. There is a sign on the front of the temple at the top. There's new masonry steps with brick surrounding on the right and the left on the base course. The roof on the rear of the building, we're going to try to save a little money, use regular asphalt shingles that are exactly the same color as the Spanish tile look. The siding on the building will be 4-inch horizontal vinyl siding, and the building is surrounded to the rear and the side with the handicapped ramp, and on the front, there are columns, rather simple design masonry columns that are going to delineate the front porch area. There is a gate on the front of the building. Call it a welcoming gate. That's proposed and shown on A2. The signage on the building is, I believe it's 28 square feet. And this is the sign at the top, I'm referring to that. I think 25 is the limit, Mr. Healy.
Yes.
I think 25 is the
I-
limit on that.
I don't recall,
We're-
so you're saying it's 28?
It's 28, and that includes the smaller little sign at the top.
Are you, I guess, are you asking for a variance for that?
It should be a waiver, I imagine.
That's a variance if it's over.
A variance? Okay. And lighting for the building, we're proposing right now just to have downlights on the porch area and the handicap ramp area, which will, it'll be shining directly down, so there won't be a lot of spillage to the lighting, and it'll create a nice glow to the building. Other than that, we're not proposing any spotlights on the building or on the side of the building.
You heard Mr. Thomas's question. Can the building be made smaller?
It's not what I was asked to do.
Right.
As an architect,
Right.
you know, I was given some parameters.
Right.
And say,
But-
you know, I need 20 feet on the front of the building.
Right. But the question is, can it be made smaller?
Can it be made smaller? Sure.
Okay. Does that create practical problems in trying to lay out what you're trying to lay out within the building? I mean, you're going on a fly, and I know you haven't given it a lot of thought, but
Right.
just by shrinking it, do you create some practical difficulties in trying to accomplish what we're trying to accomplish?
It might create problems with making the teaching room smaller, the dining room smaller. Everything gets stepped down significantly.
Right. But should the board require us to look at that, we can look at that, I assume?
Yes,
Assuming the client's willing to talk about it.
right.
Okay. Thank you.
I don't know whether you're the right person to ask, but why is there a kitchen on the first floor?
Because that's when the members come on Sundays to bring the food for the monk, which is the food for the week. That's where it's put. It's put into the kitchen.
He's got a kitchen upstairs in his apartment.
Right.
But for more people, for the congregation,
And-
sit down.
And sometimes they share some of that food during meditation. And again, they're bringing in a week's supply of food on that Sunday. And upstairs, he has basically a very small kitchen.
Okay, the food, I mean, presumably can be put into a refrigerator or whatever.
Right.
I assume it's cooked, right?
It's prepared.
So.
Yeah, monks don't
All you
cook.
would really need is a refrigerator, then he could go upstairs and cook it, you know, put it in a microwave or whatever it is.
Right.
I mean, this is a full kitchen, and I'm just wondering why it's a full kitchen.
I think part of the ceremony is that the members get together and sit down and have a meal.
Dining room.
Mm-hmm.
That's why there's a big kitchen, because there could be 10 people having a meal, sitting
That's
down
what you have a
having a meal.
dining room for,
So,
right?
Right.
There's not any
Sure.
preparation involved.
I mean, presumably people have prepared the food.
That is correct.
right.
So, you know, I mean, I'm just at a loss to understand why there's a full kitchen.
I wish I can answer that. I did, I did the same facility in South Brunswick for another monk, and there's a full kitchen, even though people bring the food. And I don't have an answer to the question.
Well, for example, if one were trying to cut some square footage here, that would be, it seems to me, a place where it could be reduced.
Well, yeah, that would cut the total square footage of the building, but it wouldn't change the parking needs, because the only thing we count for the
No,
parking
it
needs,
wouldn't, but
just to
if you
clarify, because we only do the worship area for the parking needs.
No, but what, it would make it possible to,
Right, I see what you're
Cut
saying.
the whole
Right, to cut
thing
the whole
down.
building down easier, right.
Again, Ms. Grumman, if at some point this evening or whenever the board says we should look at trying to shrink this thing, you know, I mean, obviously that's something we would look at, assuming the client wants to
I
shrink.
mean, I don't care about it just, based on how you described what went on, it just
Right.
didn't seem to me that a large, full kitchen made sense.
Well, I know they bring, I assume they have to heat food and again, it's there for the week, so I guess they have to have enough refrigeration for a week's worth of food for the monk and,
Okay?
A few questions, Mr. Chairman. When you were going over I'm assuming, obviously, when you went over the plans, developing the plans, your clients gave you some certain parameters. What was the discussion when it came to the
No,
sizing of?
they actually didn't, Mr.
Didn't?
Gilly. No, they didn't
Okay.
give me any parameters. They said they wanted an additional 20 feet in the front of the building.
Okay,
And that's what I'm presenting to you tonight,
okay.
all right?
Well, maybe that's, maybe that's where some of the, I guess, lack of a better term, disconnect comes, because, I'm hearing, again, we keep hearing 15 to 20 people, and we have a worship area that's 24 feet wide, and it goes back 42 feet
Right.
for 15 to 20 people.
But you're
Just-
thinking like a Western man who has 18 inches to sit on a pew,
Okay.
and that's
well-
not the case.
Okay,
The altar spills out into the congregation area, and people come and sit on a rug,
okay.
okay, and kind of stretch out if they want to. And it's a little bit different,
Okay.
all right?
We haven't heard any of these. This is what I'm trying to get out of you.
So
is this type of
occupancy now
explanation.
in the state of New Jersey is no longer divisible by a square foot number. And this is what you're doing. You're saying you're dividing it by 5 square feet per person. You can fit 90 people in this building.
But what I'm trying to get at
We're
is-
saying that that's the fire code. I mean, the
The
fire
design
code.
professional can now dictate the occupancy to the fire official, and that's what we're doing here this evening.
What are you saying that, what would your occupancy level be then?
Well, we're presenting 30 people
Well, yeah, but that's,
in the congregation.
that.
That's what we're presenting to
Yeah, but
you.
there's two different things that you're saying. We're talking about when you get a permit to occupy that building, there's going to be a maximum occupancy load, and that's going to be based on approximately 90, talking to our construction official and our fire code guy. You're telling me, at least I misunderstood, that you can dictate another number, and
That's
I'm
correct.
asking you
That-
what.
that's correct.
What that number would be.
30.
Okay, and why is that?
That's what we're presenting to you tonight. It's the size of the congregation.
And again, that's our maximum anticipated present and future congregation.
I just want to make sure that I'm clear, so when, go back and I talk to Vince Lupo and John House tomorrow or Monday, that they're going to tell me that based on what you give them, that when they give, if this is approved, that the maximum occupancy that they're going to have on the certificate of occupancy is going to say 30.
More than likely, yes.
Well, more than likely, I mean,
That's what
Because-
I'm presenting to them.
all right, I have to understand
Yeah,
that.
And they're not going to
because-
put 90 on it.
And that's fine.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
need to understand that, and the board needs to understand that.
Because the number of toilets are based on that number. There's a lot of things that are based on that number, Vince. Yeah.
If we had, yeah, just let me ask that question, Mr. Hussain. If we were proposing to have 90 people in that building, do we have adequate bathrooms?
No, we don't.
And these are the reasons why these questions are being asked, to get this all on the record. Could you just describe the entry gate, because that also is a variance that your client is asking for? Could you show that to the board?
I'm not sure what the religious function of it is, but it certainly delineates that you're now on the temple property.
Okay.
That you've entered something different,
Well,
and you go through the gate.
okay, well, that was going to be my second question. Do you have something that shows the appearance of that gate and its location on the site?
On the top left-hand corner of drawing A2, it's a 14-foot-high structure, and there's an 8-foot clearance that you would walk under it. And I think it's more just ceremonial.
So did your client indicate so you're saying your client didn't indicate it doesn't have any religious symbolism or
Well,
importance to
maybe
their...
we should ask them,
Okay. But they didn't indicate that to you?
so.
Did they indicate anything along those lines to you?
They indicated that they wanted the gate at the front of the building. The reason, I don't know, but if we take a break, I think it's probably better if we have a bunch of questions to ask them, that I could try to ask them during break and give you answers than but I'll try to get you that answer.
Okay.
Wait. You can't just, you can't just say, Mr. Interpreter, ask him why he needs the gate and what the function of the gate is?
He want that gate is bigger. That's why he want to be that. Is some people that no, that's one for the temple. For that's one from people know is.
Is he saying that this makes it identifiable as a
I
temple?
think that is what he is saying, is more for, it doesn't necessarily have a religious significance, but
But if it says temple up there,
Right.
isn't that identifiable?
but
Relatively large building that is going to be very distinctive on a pretty small site. I can't imagine anybody's going to miss it.
Is there some sort of tradition? Is it some sort of tradition?
he, from what his answer is right now, no, but I will try to clarify that. But he indicated it was more to point out where the temple is as an entrance.
I don't think so. The building is so distinctive.
Any other questions? We'll have any public discussion when you're at the end of,
You want me to go to the next witness?
yes, if you're ready.
Okay, Mr. Ghazali.
No, you can't. They pointed out that the number of toilets, for example, will necessarily limit the usage and the certificate of occupancy. I have a concern with that.
Sir, if you raise your right hand for me, solemnly swear or affirm to tell the whole truth, nothing but the truth.
I do.
And your name is, for the record?
Robert Gazzale, Gazzale. I'm a licensed professional engineer with Fisk Associates. I've been licensed since 1995. I have a bachelor.
Okay, that's fine.
Okay.
Thank you.
First question, Mr. Ghazali, is the easel crooked or is the property on a slant?
It's crooked.
Oh, okay.
It helps with the drainage.
So you all have to go.
Mr. Ghazali, first of all, you're the site engineer that prepared the site plan, which is the subject of this application, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Describe the property in its current condition. What's there now?
Okay. Well, the site, as was discussed, is .45 acres. It's 100 feet wide, 197 feet deep. It's a through lot, has frontage on both Hamilton Street and Baker Street. Currently on the site is about a 1,000 square foot building, a detached masonry garage. The garage has driveway access to both Baker Street and Hamilton Street. On the site, there is an existing 6-foot solid PVC fence along the Baker Street frontage and an existing 6-foot solid fence along the westerly property line adjacent to the existing residential property. Hamilton Street is, as you know, is a county road. It's fully improved, although there are no sidewalks there currently. Baker Street is...
And is it 4 lanes in front of the subject property?
It's, well, there's no parking there.
Right, it's 4 lanes.
Yeah, it's 4 lanes.
And Baker Street?
Baker Street's about 21 feet wide. There are no curbs to the west of our property. The commercial building adjacent to us has improved Baker up to our common property line. Beyond that, it's 21 feet wide, no curb, no sidewalk.
Are there any trees or landscaping of significance on the subject property at the present time?
There are a number of 14-inch to 16-inch maples along Hamilton Street, a couple scattered trees across the property.
Okay. Can you describe to the board what we are proposing to do to the subject property?
Sure.
Which would be
Well, it's in the plan set, but it would be A2.
Okay.
Although I thought we had that already.
Okay. Then my math is not too good tonight.
Okay. All right, so this would be sheet 2 of the plan set. And the proposal is to expand the existing structure to encompass a footprint of 2,677 square feet. We're proposing a parking lot for 13 cars. It would be curb, paved, landscaped, and as we discussed, it would be illuminated, sufficient for the use as a parking lot. We are proposing one handicap spot. There would be also a enclosed trash receptacle area within the parking lot. We would widen Baker Street, curb and sidewalk, relocate the existing fence so that it continues to provide a screen to the residences across Baker Street. Supplement the existing 6-foot solid fence on the westerly property line with a row of evergreens as an additional screen. We are proposing an underground detention basin. Runoff from the property would be decreased as a result of installation of that detention basin. There'll be a number of lawn inlets throughout the property.
You indicated in your testimony at the present time that there are 2 access points to the subject property, one being on Baker Street, one being on Hamilton Street. The original plan, or the plan that was submitted to this board, intended to maintain the access on Hamilton Street. Is that correct?
Yes, the intent was to provide parking for the monk in a driveway scenario, essentially.
Okay. However, as a result of a report issued by Somerset County, they want to eliminate that driveway access. Is that correct?
That's correct.
So should the board grant the approval, the driveway access to Hamilton Street will be eliminated. Hamilton will be curbed at that point, and the only access to the subject property would be then through Baker Street.
True.
Okay.
What does that mean for those parking spaces there? That means we will only have 13 total?
There will be a total of 13
Total of
parking
13,
spaces.
right.
The
So
count-
that, so that means that the parking spaces that were allocated for the residential use there will have to be part of the 13 then?
Yeah, we need one for the monk. We have one parking space for the
Well,
monk.
I don't remember
and-
what the living space is, but if that's
Right.
what the RISA standards
Yeah.
say, I don't know if it's 1 or 2, but whatever the standards.
Right.
I'm just pointing out that you had 2 that were purely residential and 13, and now you're going to have 13 for both, that's all.
Right.
Just wanted to make sure that they still weren't going to be accessible in any manner.
That is correct, and that's as a result of the action of the county, and we're going to have to comply
So
with
what you're
that.
saying is that the total number, including the monk spot, is 13?
Correct.
Okay.
Did you say one handicapped?
Yes,
One handicapped in that?
yes, sir,
Oh, total 13.
yes.
Okay. Can you briefly indicate the pedestrian circulation around the subject property?
Right. As I mentioned, sidewalk would be constructed along both the Hamilton Street frontage and also the Baker Street. Pedestrian access would be through the entry gate to the front of the temple. The temple is surrounded by concrete sidewalk, and handicap access is located to the rear or near the Baker Street entrance.
Okay. We are also putting on the site a statue of the Buddha, is that correct?
Yes.
Can you briefly describe both the size of it and its location and whether it is in fact illuminated?
The statue will sit on a base that's 15 feet square. The overall height of the statue is 19 feet in total. It'll be located adjacent to the concrete walk along Hamilton Street. It's about 42 feet from the property line, and the plan is to have it ground illuminated.
Okay, so the Buddha itself will not be illuminated. It will have a light shining upon it.
Right. It will not be internally
illuminated. Okay.
Could I go back a second, because you
Sure.
were talking about pedestrian circulation? As you anticipated, or as it's anticipated, there'll be parking access coming in Baker Street, and any parking will take place at the rear of the lot. I'm assuming rear of the lot, assuming that the front of the lot is Hamilton. And people will come around and walk this proposed concrete sidewalk, and then I would think, rather than come all the way out to Hamilton and go through the entry gate, they would just go up the stairs and into the temple, right?
That is.
I agree.
That is correct, yeah.
So, unless people are parking, for the extra parking over on Franklin, and who's going to use the entry gate?
Probably very few people. If somebody was walking from someplace that wanted to come to the site, they would use it. But generally, most of the people that come to the site will be coming and parking on Baker Street in our parking lot and entering the building through the sidewalks on site.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Could you just do one quick description of what a circulation plan would be? Cars enter Baker Street, where do they go and park?
Right.
And how do they get back out?
Well, cars would enter off of Baker Street. The parking lot's designed according to the township standard. There's a 26-foot aisle separating 18-foot deep spaces on both sides. So, and there is a backing area 10 feet in depth. So a car that would pull in and face the temple would have an area to back up and then exit the site and back out onto Baker Street.
And do you have plans for any sort of, or need for a small garbage dumpster, or?
We do, and one is shown on the plan in the corner of the parking lot. It's a 10-foot wide enclosure, about 8 feet.
Okay.
And the parking lot itself meets all the township standards. The widths of the aisles meet township
Yes.
standards. The stalls meet township standards.
Right.
And there's adequate room for a vehicle to turn around on the site and get in and out of the property.
Yes, there is.
Okay.
Including fire
Where did that come from?
equipment, God forbid.
Well, a fire truck could access the site. You'd have to back out. I mean, there isn't enough room for anybody to pull a U-turn.
What is the parking standard per the ordinance?
One space for 15 square feet of the congregation area, which would translate in this case to 70 spaces.
Okay, because I thought I saw in a footnote in a review letter, 1 space per 3 worshipers. I guess that's not.
If there is fixed seating.
Yeah, it depends on whether
Yeah.
they have fixed seating.
If there's fixed seating and there's pews as the traditional churches had, it would be 1 space for every 3 seats, and your ordinance measures the seat, I think, is what, 30-some feet wide, 30-some inches wide for each person. So, quite frankly, if we put pews in there, the parking requirements would probably be less because of the pews. But if you have an open area, as we do, your ordinance says 1 space for 15 square feet. And I don't think in any of the temples we've ever needed that much, but that's what your ordinance calls for.
No. Do you know whether there's on-street parking?
There
on
is
Baker?
none on Hamilton Street. Baker is 21 feet wide, so I imagine you could park on the shoulder, halfway off the pavement.
Okay, so it's not prohibited,
It's
as
not
far as you know?
prohibited,
Okay. Where the asphalt drive is being removed, do you think you can put another street tree there?
The one
On
that was-
Hamilton?
Yes.
Okay. That's all I have.
Pete, are you going to address all the staff reports later? Because John House did have, I don't know if you want to address his report now, since that was kind of touched on?
I'm gonna go-
Or do you want to wait till later? That's up
I
to
can
you.
go
I
through the
just,
staff reports with Mr. Pizzani now.
it goes to the question. I know he had a comment on that, so.
Did we get Mr. House report?
Yeah, he did it in March. He did it.
I don't know.
It doesn't
that I have.
necessarily mean it was sent to us.
He didn't like the parking.
Yeah, I'll let him do
Well, I mean, the question of inadequate parking is based on our intended use in the testimony. I don't know if that's within Mr. House's purview. He's right, we can't park on either street, and our plans aren't based on the fact that there is proposed parking either on Hamilton Street and Baker Street. I think to follow up on Cheryl's question, right now, there are no restrictions as far as whether somebody wanted to park on Baker Street. I had a discussion with John about that, and, it's a damned if you do, damned if you don't situation. If you put a sign, or if the township passes an ordinance that there's no parking on Baker Street, you may be hurting the residents more than you're hurting us. Again, based on our testimony, we don't anticipate a need for that street parking. But I think that's addressing John's report. I mean, you can restrict, or the council can restrict parking on Baker if they want it. I don't know if you really want to do that, but clearly, we, based on our testimony, don't need it, and our overflow parking is held over at Franklin Boulevard.
Peter, before you go on, I forgot to ask, does the monk drive? Does he have a car?
Yes, he does.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, has a car, drives, has a license.
That's what I'm looking for.
Mr. Ghazali, you've reviewed the engineering report prepared by Carl Hauk dated March 4th, 2014. Is that correct?
Yes, I have.
And that report consists of 4 pages. Subsequent to that report being issued, we had a meeting with Mr. Zelnick to deal with some drainage questions that were raised in comments number 18 through 24. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And as a result of that, there will be some modifications to the stormwater management plan that was submitted. Is that correct?
There'll be additional information submitted.
Right.
The plan will remain.
But we have
We're going to
provide-
supplement some information.
Supplement the information. Other than that, all of the other comments in the staff report we can comply with. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And we will supply lighting even though there is no lighting on the plan.
That's correct.
Okay, and were there any engineering questions or site issues that Mr. Healy raised?
Yeah, Pete, I actually have a few questions.
Go ahead.
Cut right to the chase. Well, one of the two of the variances that we haven't spoken of yet, I'm sure the planner will get to it, but this is in the M2 zone.
Correct.
And the M2 zone has some buffering requirements and parking setback requirements that apply to this site as they apply to other uses in the M2 zone. So one of the required variances, you're not allowed to have parking within the required front yard. And you have two front yards. You have Hamilton Street and you have Baker Street, both are front yards, and your parking area is within that front setback. So that's one of the variances. So to use an example of where this is applied, if you drive down Veronica, World's Fair Drive, you'll see, industrial areas with lawns instead of a sea of parking lots going along the street. So that's the intent, is to have somewhat of an open feel to industrial areas. This is an M2 zone, so that requirement applies. And then related to that, there's another requirement where an M2 zone adjoins a residential zone. You have to have certain amount of buffering, evergreen plantings of certain size, et cetera. And in this situation, the R7 zone, which is a residential zone, is across the street on the other side of Baker. So what, the sum of these two requirements is, technically, as applied to this site, no parking within 50 feet on Baker, and they need to have some buffer between them and their residential neighbors across the street. So with all of that background, was there an effort, what could you do, looking at this site as a site engineer, to come closer to complying with those requirements?
Well, as far as complying with the 50-foot setback, we would have to eliminate.
To come closer. Right now, it's set back 4 feet. Is there a way to make it more conforming? Obviously,
You're talking
50
about
is
the
not
parking?
possible. Yes.
Yeah, no. The existing structure on that face, on the Baker Street face, is staying in its current location. And the parking lot is designed to meet the standards of the town. We have a 6-foot sidewalk, 18-foot space, 26-foot aisle.
So that, okay, yeah, now, actually, that's another question. So you're actually using the existing building? The existing building's not coming down and you're not
Oh, no.
building a new building? Or you're
No,
actually
but-
expanding upon the existing building?
That's correct.
Really? Okay. So that existing location, that's dictating, means
Where
you
the
can't
park-
slide the building up because you're reusing or
That's my
expanding
understanding,
upon the existing
yes.
building?
Yes.
Okay.
As far as providing additional screening, we do have the existing 6-foot solid fence along Baker. There is some opportunity to plant additional evergreens or other shrubs along that fence line, in between the fence and the proposed sidewalk, or if the board desired, eliminate the sidewalk and beef up the landscape buffer additionally.
So if this was a vacant site, you would possibly be able to design it to be more in conformance with some of the standards that Mr. Healy mentioned, but because you want to reuse the existing structure, that kind of, is that what you're saying?
Yes,
Okay.
exactly.
Yeah, the other thing, Mr. Healy, I would, with respect to the buffering issue, I disagree with you that the M2 buffering standards would apply.
We've had this.
Yeah, I just want to put it on the record.
Because, and
Again-
I'll explain why. I mean, it says it applies, except if that residential zone is separated by an arterial street or larger. So it does not apply to the residential properties on the other street of Hamilton Street.
No.
But it does apply on Baker.
That's not the reason I don't think it applies. There are buffer standards that apply to churches that are different than the buffer standards that apply.
But those
Yeah.
standards don't apply, Pete, because this isn't a conditional permitted use. It's in the M2. We're not applying any of the conditional permitted use standards to this.
We're not.
We're
We're not
not,
applying the
none of
You're
us.
apply any of the conditions?
No,
Okay.
no, 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 no,
Fine.
and-
This
right.
is an M2 requirement.
You're applying the M2 requirements?
Yes.
Okay.
Right.
So
And I would agree with you. If we were applying any of the conditional use standards, we'd have to be consistent. We couldn't pick and choose which one we wanted to do. I agree with that.
Thank you.
So we're applying the
Right.
requirements that are imposed on all uses within the M2. And that, again, is the parking requirement, the buffer requirement we just talked about.
Okay. And for the record, and let me just touch on the issue of the parking. Or the sidewalk. We had talked about perhaps putting some additional landscaping and eliminating the sidewalk, but based on discussions that we had with Mr. Zelnick and also with Mr. House, I think the sidewalk is more important than the landscaping. So although we can put some landscaping in there, I don't think either of them would want the sidewalk removed, is
That's how I remember it.
our discussion. So
I can
Probably don't
concur with
want
that. I was in that meeting. From their perspective, it's accurate what you're reflecting.
Right, so we can, if the board wants us to put some additional landscaping in the vicinity of the fence on Baker Street, we can do it, but we don't want to take out the sidewalk, or it's been recommended that we not remove it.
I just think there's too much on that site.
Hmm?
I think there's too much on that site.
And then I'm assuming, just for the record, that I do have a number of other kind of plan comments, changing. I'm assuming you have no objection to those.
That's fine.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
And you're talking about the species of trees and all?
Yeah, I don't want to.
Those things we can
Yep.
comply with.
Yep.
Are we keeping the street trees that are on Hamilton Street? I know that was the,
Yeah.
We're keeping one of them. And we're adding another, and then,
and what in the picture, is it 3 that I see?
four, actually. And one's very close to the common property line with the neighbor to the west.
Why would they interfere with anything?
Well, our underground detention system is in the front yard, and our outlet to the existing storm sewer in Hamilton Street would run right through those trees.
There's not enough space to put things, right? Anyway, any other questions?
But just on trees, just for the record, I mean, I went out there after I did the memo again, and I noticed that when you look in the photo, the two largest trees, there's a 20-inch and a 28-inch along the easterly property line. From what I recall, I believe those are dead. I think those have since been chopped down or whatever. So I think for the record, the really big ones are not healthy existing trees.
Okay.
Although I think some of the trees along Hamilton Street are worth looking at for preservation.
And we have no problem looking at them for preservation if they can be preserved. We didn't decide to take them out because we just felt like it, and we will, as we look at everything, if we can't preserve them, we will.
Okay.
And again, we do have an opportunity to provide additional trees now that that driveway is coming out of there.
Any other questions? Is his testimony completed?
His testimony is completed.
All right, we'll take a 5-minute break. Come back at 9:30.
I mean, out of the corner, said no impact, 4 years. I mean, I was sometime. He said,
We would like to get the meeting back to order, if everybody could take a seat. I'll turn it back over to Mr. Lanford.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, during the break, I discussed some of the questions that were raised and issues raised by the board members, and as I indicated to you, or to the board at the beginning of the meeting, sometimes there are communication issues that make presenting this application a little bit more difficult. And when we talked about those gates and having no significance, I find out that that's not the case. But there is significance to the gates. I also hear the message that you probably would like us to look at perhaps making this building a little bit smaller, and I hate to have a client make a decision under some pressure, and we need to have the architect look at it. My suggestion is, rather than proceed with additional testimony, if the neighbors have any questions of the witnesses, we can try to answer their questions this evening, and then carry this matter so we can look at perhaps doing something with the building, perhaps me getting you answers as to why the kitchen is the way it is, if it's going to remain the way it is. I can get you some answers as to the gates and if there's any other questions, because like I said, it is sometimes very difficult in trying to communicate and get all of the answers to you, and I know I want to give you as much information as possible. So I think that may be the best way to do this. If any of the neighbors have any questions of any of our professionals, we'd be happy to answer them now, and then we can digest all of the input we got this evening, which we appreciate, and then come back with either the same plan or some other plan, and at a future date.
Okay, I would agree. And in light of that, we will open the meeting now to the public, so that if any people out there have any questions about the testimony that you've heard, this would be the time to ask it. And any other concerns that you would like the applicant to hear, they'll be coming back. Something you present to the applicant tonight should be addressed at the next meeting. Anybody who has some, come on up. All right, first, second, third.
Should I swear?
And since you may be giving us a little bit of your opinion along with your concerns, we should swear you in.
Okay, if you'll raise your right hand for me, solemnly.
Microphone, see if it's working.
Pete will get it on for you.
Okay, if you'll raise your right hand, you solemnly swear or affirm to tell the whole truth, nothing but the truth?
Yes.
And your name and address, please.
Okay, my name is Martha Arpad, A-R-P-A-D. I happen to own property at 990 Hamilton. And I just want to say, the way I was informed, I did get one certified letter, as I was telling one of your representatives. I came on the date that they specified, which was April the 17th, which happened to be Holy Thursday for me. I had to miss my Mass because of the meeting, and when I got here, all the door had on it, meeting canceled. No notice as to when it was be rescheduled. I had a call, and they told me it would be tonight. When I tried calling the planning board, like I'm not familiar with proper procedures and everything else, I couldn't get through because of the answering machine that comes on automatically, telling you, oh, leave your name and a message, and we'll get back to you. Now I work, and I don't always have time to come here to look at the plans and everything else. I had to take a day off when on my vacation to come in and see what was planned. When I saw the extent and when I saw the property in question, I just couldn't believe that they were even applying for a grant that big,
Would you
And
give us
I
some
was
of your
listening to
specific
everything that they were
concerns,
saying.
some
that-
things that you object to, so
Yeah.
they can have some homework?
Yeah, because we didn't get any follow-up letter stating, okay, the meeting was canceled, you'll be getting another meeting on such and such a
Okay,
date.
that part is not the fault of the applicant.
Okay.
That would be in the township, but
Alrighty.
you could give us some
Alrighty,
specific objections. to the
Okay, some
plan.
objections I feel is that, number one, the structure is too big for the area that they plan. Also, I still think that the parking is not sufficient. And I've asked a couple of the neighbors in the area, because I don't live here. And they've also informed me that the parking is pretty bad since the constructions of those condos and everything else. And I've seen a lot of accidents on Hamilton Street since they've been built. Because of the traffic, people are tired of waiting, they pull out, and they cause accidents. And, okay, he says it's only going to be so many. But when they have their special programs and everything else, it's just like in our little church that I attend. Gets overcrowded, we have metered, designated spots that you're supposed to park at, and you happen to come home and your place is taken. So it may not be the same for the residents here, but I still think it's too big a structure. Why not sell the property, buy something, and then you don't have to go through all these problems of being within a certain budget area according to the township? It would make it a lot easier. Or keep it the way it is. Don't, you can expand or make it a lot more feasible, but not so big.
Do you own the property next door?
Not next door. I own the property at 990 Hamilton. Now, that's also an M2 zone. And it's got a lot more, how should I say, acreage, almost an acre, shy of an acre of property. And I don't intend on selling it. But if I were, and that property were available, it would probably fit their needs. But I'm holding on to it.
Okay?
So
Thank you.
how many houses are in between you
I would
and
say maybe 4,
four houses?
maybe 4.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Sir. Again, speak into the mic and let us swear you in first.
Sir, do you solemnly swear to tell the whole truth, nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay, your name and address, please?
Derek Hamilton, I'm at 84 Baker Street, Somerset, New Jersey.
Okay.
And 84 Baker Street is actually the first house facing Baker when you come on there. It's a blue house. In fact, I'm just about in the back of the house in front that they are talking about making I'm going to call it the church. However, in the past years, there's a lot been going on over there to me. They were talking about the number of cars are there. The cars have outnumbered the number that they said was there. In the wintertime, they were parking on part of my yard, where in the springtime, I had to go and fill the holes in on it. I spoke to several people about parking in front of my driveway because I backed out of my driveway, move up further or whatever. I try to be nice to them. One woman had New York plates on her car, but she went up one side of me, down the other. She parked where she wanted to and this type of thing, which got on my nerves. Several times back, a couple of years ago, the ambulance came next door to me to pick up my brother. They could hardly get in there, and this was on a Sunday afternoon. So in other words, behind the building that was there, the building that is there on the corner of Berry and Baker, which is again in front of me, they park on both sides of the streets, and as I said, they go down past by my next door neighbors, which is where my brother used to live, God rest his soul. And they come up on the front of my house. Well, they already across the street in front of my house. They come up in front of my house, and they're driving over on the grass and stuff like this. As I said before, I got to go out there in the springtime and clean it up when there was snow and stuff out there. At the present time, when they come out, it's raining and stuff like this, it's not like the other church that was trying to be there before. I think they put a little gravel in the yard or something like that. But I still get all this in front of my house, because when you come out that back gate, you turn, and my house is the first one you go right through.
Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
Right now, the way that lot is, there's no asphalt parking. It doesn't look, so do you know if people actually park in the back of the house as well? Because, and the reason I ask this is because the plan contemplates a whole parking area with 13 parking spaces, which doesn't currently exist. If that parking lot were there, do you envision the same kind of problem that you're having now?
Well, to me, if that parking lot, I've seen cars parked there like a parking lot, but it's grass, okay? Now, if the weather is bad and stuff like this, I can't even walk to my sister-in-law's house because I got to walk through this mud and stuff where it's been tracked in front of my house. And my sister-in-law lived next door to me. There are times that I have a hard time backing out of my driveway because of the cars in front of my driveway on the other side of the street.
I have two questions to follow up on Ms. Granwood's question. I think what we're trying to figure out is that if there were 13 parking spaces like are proposed, do you think that that would make a difference? Are they currently parking on their property, or is all the parking on the street right now?
I see the majority of the parking on the street.
So if we had 13 cars that removed from the street and were put into that parking lot, do you think those issues that you're having now would still exist, be lessened, or would not be at all? I mean, how many cars do you think are parked on the street that are related to the house of worship use?
Well, if you take from Bury Street up past by my house, and sometime in the front of my sister-in-law's house, my property is 150 wide by 100. Okay? And they have been parked all the way down past by my sister-in-law's house. And as I said, a couple of times the ambulance had to come in for my brother back years ago.
How many cars
And
would
they
you
had
say
to
there
back up.
is? On the most crowded day that was
The most
just-
crowded days,
Yeah, that you've seen.
on one side, I'm going to look at 6 or 7 on the side behind that professional building that's right in front of my house. And on my side, there's about that, to go up and turn around, to turn in my driveway, to turn around and the driveways up the street. And down close to my house, there's about 5 or 6 right up to my mailbox, at least 5.
So 11 or 12, 11 to 13 total is what you're saying?
Yeah.
Okay.
But then at times, as I said, they put somebody put gravel in there, which sort of eased it up a bit. Now, nobody has been there in a pretty good while because I don't know what's going on there, or things are just quiet there. But that, on Sunday afternoon, if I got company coming, they got no place to park. Okay, and I do have, not every Sunday, but some Sundays I have friends coming there and this type of thing.
Yeah, the numbers you gave were very helpful to the board.
So I'm looking at this, and the second thing, I have nothing against religions or this type of thing. I go to my front window and look out the window most of the morning. It's in my blood. Thank you, God, for a new day. That's the first thing I look at the window. But I don't want to look out the doggone window and see a Buddha standing in front of that I can see from my window in the front of my house. That's 3 things that that's really getting me. Plus, it's bringing more traffic down on Baker Street. There's only 4 houses there, and this year I'm turning 70. The rest of the people is almost old as me. I'm gonna put it that way. I'm not gonna talk about that because I can't.
You probably wouldn't see the Buddha because that would be on the other side of the property.
But it's just like other churches I've been to. I don't go to a place and I see these statues and things standing out in front of a friend's house and stuff like this. And I mean, that's not my religion and stuff like that, but it's something that I don't want to see there.
Thank you very much.
Would a privacy fence help you out any?
There is pros.
Well, they got the 6-foot white fence over
there
there,
is-
but
there is.
when I look out my window, I can see across there too. So,
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, if you'll raise your right hand for me, you solemnly swear to tell the whole truth, nothing but the truth. And you need to speak into the microphone, if you will. Tell us who you are and where you reside.
Good afternoon. I'm Emma Hamilton. I live at 86
Go
Baker.
close to the mic.
I live at 86 Baker Street, right across, right in front of the building we're talking about. And I've been there ever since they started coming in there. I spoke to a few people. Nobody never really came and said, I'm so-and-so, I'm this, I'm that, hello. And at one time, it was when they was putting the gravels and stuff, the kids was out playing outside. It was gravels all in the street, big rocks in the street. Our street was loaded with where the kids had threw stuff in the street, okay? And really, when I open my front door, I'm looking directly to this building. Before we was having problems, before they put the fence up there, we had spoke to the township about it. The township said that at first we had trees in front of my house. Township said the trees was on our property, on the township property, was township's trees. My brother-in-law's tree was blew down when we had the big storm. All of a sudden, it's not the township's property no more. Okay? Okay, whose property is it? Before we couldn't do anything with our trees, soon as he had a problem with the trees, it's no longer township. Township don't want to hear it no more. Now, across the street in front of me, when they put the fence up, all of a sudden now, the township got this property in front of me. No longer my property. Now they on the other side of the street now. Now what's going on with the township? How can you have property over here, now you're over here? So when it comes summertime, it be so much weeds and stuff over there. I'd call the township. They come and clean up. They do not come and clean up until I make a call. Paper and stuff be all over, all across the street in front of me. Until I make a call, that's the only time township come and do anything, when I make a call.
Is it, yeah, is it this proper, ma'am, right here, right here? Look
Oh,
straight ahead.
sorry.
No, right here.
Okay.
Okay, you're saying this property, they're not keeping it up, or is it along the street that's not being?
It's right across the street, but now they put the fence up, so nobody done anything with that
On
property.
the other side of the fence, like on the
In
streets?
front of me.
On the street side of the
Yes.
fence? Okay,
Yes, on this side of the street, no one is taking care of that,
got it, okay.
okay? And last year I called someone. Big rats, everything running across the street. Until I called township, that's when somebody come in and did something. So unless I call, nobody. But really, I don't appreciate them putting a big building. Nobody never said nothing to us about they was doing the building. Okay? This, when I got the letter, this is the first I'm hearing of. I see cars coming in and out. And really, their cars, they double park. So if they're gonna do this building, the building they talking about putting in, I can't understand where they're gonna do their parking. Because it's not that big. I've been there. When the neighbors was living there, it's not that much room there.
Well, the plan that they submitted, and they do have enough room on their site for a 13-space parking lot.
Okay, maybe they do. But, okay, if they have the room, why do people park in back of my driveway?
Well, they don't have a parking lot right now. There's no parking lot on site. The proposal is to make the building bigger and to provide a parking lot on
I
site.
know a few times I can't even get out my driveway.
And how many,
Right in back of my driveway.
in-
I back up to turn around. I can't get out.
how many cars do you think, we had the gentleman just speak that 12, 13 cars, is that your experience too, that 12 to 13 cars have been on the street?
Exactly. If a fire would break out, the fire truck wouldn't have no way of getting in. If I would have a fire in my house, where the fire department going? Where they going?
Right.
I pay tax.
You have any other comments that you want to make on any of the testimony or anything else?
Well, right now, like I said, I don't know what you're thinking about, but I don't think anyone else would want to live where I'm living and open their front door and looking straight at this big building every day. I really don't approve of it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other members of the public? Then we'll close and come up with a date.
July 17th, right? For the public, the next hearing on this application is going to be July 17th in this meeting hall at 7:30 PM. You won't get another notice, so mark July 17th. If you have any questions or comments or anything, you can come into the office and speak to Mark or I. We can show you the plans, go over anything that you have, but the next meeting will be July 17th. You won't get anything else in the mail or anything else.
Okay, is there a motion to close?
So moved.
All in favor? Opposed? Mo-